What up, though, people? It's your boy Brandon Dent, aka Detroit Kool-Aid, and it's another solo pod today, man. Shout out to the legend, Detroit News Rod Beard. He had a very, very important meeting today, and it's a big time for him. Now that he is the chief. When big things happen in Detroit and in Michigan, and as it relates to sports, it's going to be on him a lot more than when he was just the Detroit Pistons beat writer for the Detroit News. Now he's a sports editor in chief there, and you got Michigan winning the Natty, you got Jim Harbaugh news, and you got the Pistons winning the game. Yeah, that's breaking news, right? And you got the Lions, who are doing things we haven't seen done here in over 30 years. So when he gets back, we're gonna make sure, since we missed a few weeks here, that we give him this huge drum roll, man. I'm talking about all of the times, the symbols, everything. Shout out to Jeff Iafrate as well, the Morning Woodward Show. He had a meeting today as well at Woodward Sports. I'm actually going to be jetting out to Pistons practice right after I record this and before the pod drops. But you guys might also notice the setup is a little bit different right now, man, the home setup. And I'm going to be doing a lot more from here. The reason why I haven't been able to do a lot more of the table talks, a lot more of the lives, a lot more of the solo content I wanted to do. I'll be for real with you guys, man. We were in the middle of a move. We got wifey's pregnancy. We got into an accident that delayed things as it related to our move, and we thought was going to speed things up as it relates to the birth. There's been nights where we were running out to the hospital because we thought baby was on the way and all of that stuff. But we finally got moved in. Our house sold a little bit faster than we wanted it to, and then we thought it was going to, I guess. And our new house, our new place wasn't ready just yet, but you guys might see the keyboard down here. I got my microphone, got the Woodward Pistons in the background as well. But soon you're going to see a lot more of my memorabilia that kind of encapsulates Detroit sports and a lot of good memories, man, including, my grandfather who passed away. He left something to me, a lot of things, man, beyond just his wisdom and his words. But he knew how big of a sports fan that I was, and he gave me this placard, man, this huge kind of like 2.5 foot by 4 foot. Um, you guys will see it, and it has all the Super Bowl tickets from 50 years. Now, when he gave it to me, there has been probably like another 6 or 7 Super Bowls that are not on there. But he just handed it down to me, and he was like, hey, man, hopefully the Lions can add one to this as well. If they do, I'm just gonna sneak it on in there. We'll have some years missing, but shout out to the Lions, man, everything they're doing. Another thing that's been going on is Woodward upped a lot of my responsibilities. I'm on the social team. There's 3 of us there, so it's heavy work, man. All of those posts y'all see going out, it's 1 of 3 of us. Shout out to Booner. Shout out to the new guy, Travis. It used to be Lucas Klotz, man. That's the homie, that's the brother. And Travis has come into this social group and fit very, very well. And then myself, try and make sure that everything is running smoothly for you guys. The giveaways, the graphics, the clips, all of that type of stuff. And shout out to Ryan and Noah and some of the other guys that also assist as it relates to some of the fire graphics and the templates that you guys see. But I wanted to be able to talk to you guys this morning, just to be real a little bit about some things, again, with the Pistons and with everything that we see going on. Hey, they finally won another game, and they look good. They did it actually without Bojan Bogdanovic and without Cade Cunningham in the lineup, and they did it. They won this game against the Washington Wizards. Kyle Kuzma, who had some weird things to say about his hometown team, saying, hey, at this point, nobody wants to be that team. And it's like, but bro, at that time, you only had like 4 or 5 wins. What are we really talking about here? Now, we heard from Jason Tatum earlier in the season when the Pistons almost beat them, took them to overtime. He said, look, this team is better than what their record is, and they're better than a lot of the teams that are down at the bottom of the standings right now. And I believe that with all my heart. This team coming in, even Vegas said 28.5 wins over under. Nobody saw this on the way. Nobody saw the historic losing. We definitely know Troy Weaver and the Pistons didn't see this, man. They definitely didn't see this on the way. But it happened. And it happened because of the moves or the lack thereof and the lack of cohesion within the front office and by the front office. When Troy Weaver first started off with the Detroit Pistons, I thought, okay, the first drive, we'll see. I thought the Killian Hayes pick, obviously Halliburton was there among other players on the board that I believe would have fit a little bit better than what we've seen right now. We all know that. That's no question. There's some, me and my homie Stick, shout out to Sam Stick Day of Woodward Sports, kind of the thought founder of this whole thing. We had all heard that the Pistons were going to take a foreign player well before Troy Weaver was even hired, and he was hired a month in. The picks that Troy got to make, Sadiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart, I believe those were good value picks, especially where they're picked lower in the draft. Obviously, there were some players that might have been even better down lower at that part of the draft. But I'm not going to really bump my gums about Stewart and Sadiq Bey. I think that they both play good roles on squads that would be better than what the Pistons have been. Right now, they're asking a little bit too much out of Isaiah Stewart. I've been on this bandwagon for 2.5 years now that I believe Isaiah Stewart is a heart and soul type of player. He's a tough type of player, but Isaiah Stewart needs to probably come off the bench. That's just my opinion. I believe he's a fine player, but I think you want a little bit more height in your starting lineup, and I think you want a little bit more of that floor spacing from that spot, from that position on the floor. Sadiq Bey, he's a guy that the Pistons, it was kind of rumored that they weren't going to pay him. And so they wanted to make sure he got to a situation that worked for him very well because Troy Weaver knew Isaiah Stewart and Sadiq Bey when they were on the AAU circuit. That's kind of when he got a feel for who those guys were, especially out there in DC, in the DMV area where I believe Sadiq Bey is from. And played his high school ball. But that first draft was like, okay, we'll see what's up. When you augment that with the trade or the acquisition of Jeremy Grant, it's like, you know what? That first year, I got to give him an A, man. I trust in Troy. What's going on? The next year, obviously, Cade Cunningham at the top of that draft, Isaiah Livers with the second-round pick. You move into the next draft, his third draft, and you get Jaden Ivey, and he had Jalen Duren score very high. He said to him, Jalen Duren was top 5 on his draft board. And he took him with that 13th pick as it relates to trading. I thought this was Troy Weaver again, getting in his bag a little bit. He traded Jeremy Grant, which at that time, a lot of fans, not me, but a lot of fans out there wanted Jeremy Grant to be traded. They thought, hey, let's bring somebody in who can mesh a little bit better with the team in terms of facilitation, in terms of not being, I kept hearing the term black hole, and as it related to being able to floor space. Now, Jeremy Grant actually he shot the 3-ball pretty decently here, and he only continued to get better when he went to the Trailblazers. So if there's any outside chance that the Pistons can reacquire him, I would be all for Jeremy Grant Part 2, Pardo in Detroit. I definitely would, man. But that trade with the Knicks to try and help them free up some cap space so that they can go on and sign Jalen Brunson, which was their big free agent get, also brought in Jalen Duren, Alec Burks, Kevin Knox, and a bunch of trash to be able to help the Knicks free up that cap space, man. And I thought, you know what? That's pretty good. And then he went later on in that year and then also made the acquisition to bring in Bojan Bogdanovic. So look, year 3, what are you going to grade that? Ivy, Duren, Jeremy Grant out, Bojan Bogdanovic in, Alec Burks, Kevin Knox, 2 players right now that are actually paying some dividends for the Detroit Pistons right now. They don't win a couple of these games without those guys, which is weird to say, man. That's kind of how quickly kind of this thing has taken this nosedive, because those are not the guys that we should really, really, really depending on. It should be the younger guys, this younger core that he has built, because you go into the next year, you got Ausar Thompson and Marcus Sasser. But with the hiring of Monty Williams, which is where I believe the over-under 28.5 kind of took a hit, it's because Monty Williams, he came to a new team. He wanted to reset things, and he said, look, nobody's guaranteed a starting spot. And obviously, he likes older players. He likes more veteran players. He likes players that can go out there and kind of be that coach on the floor, and they're not necessarily still learning to play positions, which is what we've continued to hear as his answer as to why Ivy hasn't played the roles we all thought he was going to play. From the beginning of the season, there's been 2 narratives here that I've had to share. One narrative of what Monty has said, that there's more for him to learn defensively and offensively with Jaden Ivey. And then what I've been saying, that man needs to be playing. Jaden Ivey needs to be starting. And if you're not going to start him, he needs to get minimum 25 minutes a game. And I think he needs 30 minutes a game. Jaden Ivey is a dynamic talent. And the only way that he and Cade are ever going to work together is if they can get that chemistry. Last year, Cade didn't play with these people. This is the first season Cade has really played with these people other than Isaiah Stewart and Marvin Bagley. But Cade, he got 12 games last year with Bojan Bogdanovic. 12 games last year with Jaden Ivey, who wasn't the Jaden Ivey we saw him growing to. 12 games with Jalen Duren, who Jalen Duren wasn't even really playing like that to start the season. He wasn't a starter. He wasn't the monster that we know he is now and what he turned into as that season went on. Asar Thompson, Marcus Sasser, new players, man. New players. Alec Burks was traded for. So Cade is just now getting acclimated to these teammates. And, it's unfortunate he had the injury, but I'm grateful that it wasn't worse. But that's where I believe that things really started to take this dive. And that's what sometimes makes me pause for concern sometimes. Look, Troy Weaver should have augmented this team better. That's just me. We said it last year. You cannot have another year where injuries are the reason why or play a major role in why this team is not meeting the standard. That can't happen, man. That can't happen. But it happened. And that's on Troy Weaver. The trust that I've had in Troy has waned a lot. I think he's a great individual and a great person, but I don't believe that he's augmented this well. And I know you all in the chat have said that for a long time. Me, I have the responsibility to also report what's going on within the Detroit Pistons organization and the things that they're saying. They believe that they have this plan to properly augment this team, and they wanted to take this year underneath Monty Williams to assess. And honestly, guys, I know we wanted Troy Weaver to go out there last year and spin that cap space up and get some better players in here to make sure that Cade and Ivy and Asar and these guys are not playing outside of their roles or more than their roles should dictate at this time in their careers. But the way that I've seen Monty Williams handle things, I think that the best thing for Troy, and I don't think that he thought this team would be winning 3-4 games to this point, but the best thing would be to assess. You see kind of, I'm not going to call it weird, but how meticulous Monty Williams is with his lineups and what he's wanting to have. We all knew it. The media was asking the questions about Ivy playing. And then all of a sudden, when Ivy starts to get minutes, we see Asar's minutes go down. And then you hear this whole aspect of an organizational meeting, bro, where they had to tell Monty Williams, please play Jaden Ivey and put the ball in his hands. This is what we all thought was going to happen when Cade Cunningham was drafted. We saw the double teams. We saw the triple teams. We saw the hedges. We saw the 4s and the 5s sneaking up into the middle of the floor to try and take away the sweet spots from Cade Cunningham. We saw this already. When Jaden Ivey was drafted, we all said, fire and ice combo. If they double team Cade, it's now Jaden Ivey and the rest of the Pistons playing with an advantage. That pass from Cade to Jaden Ivey, you got downhill Jaden Ivey, which we've seen over the recent weeks and probably the last month of Jaden Ivey being able to get to the rack, and he's playing a lot more under control. He's able to facilitate a little bit better. And the turnovers as the main ball handler, those are going to happen, especially with young players. They're going to happen, especially with the Pistons, not necessarily getting the calls. They haven't earned that respect. We know how that goes. So even though it might be a foul sometimes, they haven't earned that respect. That's just how basketball and the NBA goes. I remember college ball. I was a freshman, man, teeing up for 3 in a tournament. It was at IUPUI, and I think we were playing Kutztown University. Pulled up for 3. Dude completely took me out, man. I looked up at the ref like, hey, man, what's up with the foul? He was like, get up, freshman. Go play defense. That's how that stuff goes, man. It's like the fabric of the basketball and the culture of it all. You understand that. You understand that. So I'm okay with some of the turnovers. Obviously, you don't want some of the no-look stuff that Monty was talking about. But if that's who he is, that's who he is, man. And sometimes you got to take the good with the bad as it relates to anything, man. Whether it be sports, whether you be at your job, or whether it be your kids. You got to do that, man, especially if he's one of your most talented players, man. I love Cade Cunningham, and I believe he's going to be a star. I believe he's already a star. I believe he's going to approach superstardom when they put the right pieces around him and on this team. But let's not slight Jaden Ivey, man. We see what this man is doing. We know what he's capable of. And last year, people just thought, trash team. And this year, I get it. People could say kind of the same things, but I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. Jaden Ivey is the real deal, and Jaden Ivey needs to be put in a position where he could succeed too. And ultimately, whether he's been a player that's traditionally played with the ball in his hands or not, at Purdue, he talked about that wasn't really his thing. We've seen him be proficient at this. We've seen him be able to go and honestly be really, really good at facilitating. His assists are starting to climb up. We've seen him go out there and get some rebounds. This last game in the win, man, against the Wizards, he had 3 blocks. He had, I believe, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. That's a full stat sheet for Jaden Ivey. And these are the things that you get when you trust in these players. The organizational meeting must have meant wonders for him and his confidence, man. Play that man. And Asar Thompson, give him minutes. You saw in the game against the Washington Wizards, he looked more like the Asar Thompson we saw at the beginning of the season, who honestly entered the season with full confidence. Then all of a sudden, we start to see after he got his that face mask and I think the fracture in his jaw, we started to see those minutes start to wane, start to go down. That can't be, man, especially in a year where losing is all that we've had. We don't got those types of vets on this squad that should be playing ahead of our young guys. We don't got those guys yet. And we'll get to the trade. Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala. We'll get to that. Outgoing Bagley and Isaiah Livers. But before we got there, I wanted to talk about this article that I wrote up on Woodward Sports, and it was titled, "Should Troy Weaver be the one to be able to spend the cap space?" I told you guys this year was, just as Troy said, he's assessing. For me, this is assessment. It's an audit, pass, fail. And I'm actually moving up my litmus test, man. I said in the article that I believe the litmus test for Troy Weaver should be, if he should be able to spend that cap space, should be what he does to set things up for free agency first. Is he proving to us that he's the guy that's going to be able to ultimately make the right signings, make the right trades, make the right deals? Because we've heard names floated around like Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby. We've heard those names. When I come on here and I talk about some of these things, it's not me just conjecturing. I could come to this platform and just be like, hey, let's just talk about random stuff that's never going to come true. Let's just talk about random stuff that we're not hearing. When I come to this platform, I'm telling you guys there's things that I'm hearing from other media members. There's things that we might be hearing from scouts. There's things that I might be hearing from Pistons PR. There's things I might be hearing from some of the people that are around the culture of it all. You know, I still got good relationship with Dwayne Casey. Saw him at the last home game, actually. And those were two names I know that the Pistons were interested in. You've seen it also in other reports that they were interested in looking at these types of players. And you see that market starting to dwindle. Now the players that are available that they said that they were looking at are like Tobias Harris, who had a pretty good game last game. I think 37 points. He can still hoop, man. Miles Bridges, you guys have heard us talk about him last couple weeks. Players like Zach LaVine, who, as his trade market has dwindled, the Bulls are just like, bro, we just want to get from underneath his contract. So this is what it's kind of boiling down to. And when you start to see that, you start to realize that the cap space that he has acquired, that he has accrued, if they don't do something right now, I don't know what's available in free agency unless they got another kind of team that's looking to clear up space to make their own acquisition. But at that point in time, you're also using up a lot of your cap space to take back a lot of junk, not just overpaying for what you want, but also paying for things that you don't want. That's not what's supposed to happen as you're talking about moving out of your rebuild and into we're now ready to win. They've been talking about wanting to compete, learning to compete, and going to be competing. But this is going to be year 5 coming up next year. You have to now win. You have to win. You have to win. You have to stand on business, bro. You got to win. It's Detroit Pistons fans. Last year, top 12 as it related to game attendance. This year, top 15, man. The fans are showing up. It's cold, man. We got a game tonight. The fans are showing up, even if it's sometimes a little bit light. You look at the overall numbers, and they're doing their job. They're ready for a winner. They're letting their voices be heard, and they're showing that they mean business, and they're hoping that the Pistons mean business too. But I'm going to be consistent as related to me saying, look, I'm going to continue to kind of see this thing through, at least for this season. But if Troy should be the one that should go into this offseason, I get it. If you go and you get another GM, if you fire things, you're basically starting over because a new GM, new vision, they might see things a little bit differently than what Troy, the organization, or even us have seen as it related to this restore kind of being built up. But the litmus test for me, again, I reiterate, is Troy Weaver doing something right now. The reports I've kind of seen, and talked about with some of my guys, Mike Curtis, Omari St. Kofa, James Edwards, all of us kind of put it out there when the trade happened. Marvin Bagley and Isaiah Livers for Mike Muscala and Danilo Gallinari was that these are 2 expiring contracts that they're receiving. They're getting rid of about $13-14 million in salary. They squeeze in a little bit of cap space, about $4 million in cap space more this year. And next year, obviously, they open up that cap space we've been talking about even more. So if this was a deal to allow them to just be able to take on more junk along with what they want, I guess I'm kind of okay with that. I guess. But the narrative that I've seen recently, which I want to push back against, man, is that this is a table setter for the summer. I believe something needs to happen right now. You got until the trade deadline to be able to go and convince a team that is looking to unload some of this, some of their players that they might have on high contracts to be able to do that, man. And I think this is the time to do it right now. You got to instill some type of confidence. And when you get to the free agency, what are players actually going to do and want to do? Because the players that they're going to be able to sign in free agency, not necessarily acquire, but sign, those are going to be more or less like finishing pieces. Those are going to be more like complementary pieces. You look at the free agents this year, and OG's going back to the Knicks, bro. And I don't think that, with Pascal Siakam, the news of Indiana supposedly offering up the 3 first-round picks or willing to for him, he's not going to leave Indiana unless it's for a team that's better than them. Like they're not going in reverse. Unless Dwayne Casey can really, really, really work those relationships that he's had with some of these players, I don't see how it's going to necessarily go down for the Detroit Pistons as it relates to one of those players. You got players out there like Jeremy Grant, Zach LaVine. You got players out there like Tobias Harris, Miles Bridges. You got to do something right now to show that this ship is headed in the right direction. And I think you got to do something right now to start to craft this team a little bit better to whatever Monty Williams wants. Tom Gore's brought him in. So Troy Weaver, who does not have that president of basketball operations title, has to make sure that this team is fitting what Monty Williams, his vision is, to ultimately satisfy what the owner's vision is. That's what you got to do. I do wish sometimes that it was Charles Lee or Jaron Collins or Kevin Ali who was here, because I believe as it relates to coaching up younger players, Kevin Ali, man, you look at these overtime elite players, they're hitting the league and they're doing some things. They're hitting the G League and they're doing some things, man. Kevin Ali had a good system going over there, and he was head of player development and coaches, which means he was the one bringing in the coaches to coach these teams. He was the one making sure that the programs was going the right way. I thought he would have been fantastic. He was the player. I know a lot of people, they were like, who, Kevin Ali? Look, man, been watching NBA for a long time. When he was in the NBA, they were saying about Kevin Ali, he was going to be one of those players. Like they said about Chauncey Billups, he's going to be one of those players that's going to be a future coach. That's what they were saying about him. I would have loved that one, man. I really would have. At this phase, I thought that this would have been the incremental coach. And then later on, maybe you find your Larry Brown. Maybe you find that coach that's going to be the one to take them over the edge. Or Kevin Ali grows with them and he proves himself to be one of those Brad Stevens, one of those Coach Spoles, one of those Emi Udokas. That's what I believed he could have been with this squad, especially with Asar Thompson. He kind of knows him, and of course he knows him. Overtime elite. But now you're in a situation where, I'm hearing people say that, they could buy them out. Mike Muscala and Danilo Gallinari, but I'm seeing, some of the quotes from Amari Sankofa where Monty Williams is saying, you know what, these are players who've been traded before. They understand the acclimation process. These are players who understand what the deal actually is. These are players who can space the floor. They're both at, I believe, 37% plus. They're both standing at 6'10" tall. And so if they actually can play, I know Gallinari's been injured, but if they actually got there and play, they should be able to offer something a little bit more to the Pistons than what we've been seeing. Now we understand why Marvin Bagley hadn't been playing, because obviously the Pistons have been talking behind the scenes. And if this is a table setter deal, I'm really hoping that this is a table setter deal for the Pistons to do something right now, even if it's incremental. Right now, man, you got till the trade deadline. Let's get something done. Let's restore a little bit of hope. We talk about restoring the team, but the Pistons fans have been dragged through the mud. You got to restore a little bit of faith and hope in these people, man. I'm not trying to look ahead to like, well, we got to bring somebody else in here now. I was on board with 4 to 5 year rebuild. That's kind of the time frame they were talking about. And they talked about the Cades injury that set them back a year. They had an assessment year, and the 5th year was going to be a winning year. But realistically, we're in a position right now where it's hard to really believe in their vision. Not that they're lying, but when you're talking about a product that is contingent on seeing it after, you can have all of the hope in the world. You could be doing this with the best of intentions. But realistically, when you put the puzzle together and you stand back and you look at it, if it don't fit, it don't fit, man. It don't fit. Like I told you on the last solo pod, I'm not gonna jump on here and be disingenuous. I can't do that. With a rebuild, especially for the first 2 or 3 years, you got to sit back and see what's going on. And I really liked where things were headed. So for right now, like where things are at right now, I'm telling y'all, man, look at my face, bro. Like I'm just shy of saying I'm disgusted. I am highly disappointed. I feel highly let down. And I relate with a lot of you all. My job as a reporter, though, also is to make sure that I'm hearing what the organization is saying and making sure that I am aptly relaying that to you guys. They believe they got a plan. They believe that they got some people that they can reach out to and make something happen as it relates to getting some free agents in here and putting a winning team out there. They believe that they have the ability to make a splash, and if not making a splash, that they can bring in some players that's going to mean winning. But what and this is where the young core matters, because where I didn't want to be back with this team is signing some mid-league players just to be knocking on the 8th seed, 9th seed, 10th seed every year, making a play-in and all that. This is where the young core matters, is that if they can, get the right pieces around Cade and Ivy and Duren and Asar as rookie on their rookie contract deals, even if they're kind of mid-league players, that's going to be much better than when they surrounded Andre Drummond with mid-league players. And then eventually had to bring in a Blake Griffin to say, well, let's try and get back to the playoffs. Remember, the first time we made the playoffs, it was without Blake Griffin. It was with kind of Andre Drummond and Morris and some of those guys. And Stanley Johnson and such. And Stan was the year when Stanley was like, yo, I'm inside LeBron James' head. You do those same types of moves around Cade and some of these guys, and Monty Williams actually plays them to their strengths, then I do believe that you'll see this team have a little bit more success and have the kind of ability now to build a reputation around the league that they're serious and that Troy Weaver can be trusted. Because that's the other aspect here. People from the house, if we can see what's going on with this front office, everybody else can. They wonder, well, I can have a good relationship with Troy Weaver, but is he the one that's going to be able to have the final say? Is he the one that's actually going to be able to pull the strings? Or they can say, I liked what Troy Weaver was doing, but I don't know what's going on right now. So the Pistons got to build up goodwill with the fans. They got to build up goodwill with the league and with potential free agents and people who they're interested in. Because what if those players are just not interested in the Pistons, which we know could be the case? I mean, are y'all even interested in the Pistons? The one thing I can say is a shout out to Pistons fans. Shout out to social media, the Pistons, Twitter, Pistons, Instagram, all of y'all care. Y'all really care. Y'all really want this to be different. Y'all are still watching. Y'all are still supporting. Y'all are still hurting after each game. So it's like, you know what? I hope that Troy Weaver gets something done now. This can't be a situation where, they go into the offseason and they put all their hopes and dreams and trying to hope they get some magical acquisition. If that is their hope, then I'm hoping that Troy Weaver already has something lined up, like he did with the Knicks. We knew that they were flirting at the trade deadline, and then when they got to the draft, they actually executed the trade. That's the only way, but we will never know that. A lot of what Troy does flies under the vest, and then boom, you hear about it later. So I want to be, like I said, I want to come on this pod and be real with you guys, because it's not fair to hold a platform, hold a credential, and not also represent you all. My job is to represent the Pistons organization by reporting what they're saying, but my job is also to represent you all. I don't want to be arguing with y'all. I don't want to be going back and forth with y'all. My views are going to be my views. My points are going to be my points. But ultimately, I want to be able to be a voice for you guys in those press conferences, in those practices, and amongst the organization. That's what I want ultimately. So let's find a common place, man, where you guys can ask me your questions. Give me your mailbag stuff, man. Give me the stuff that you guys want to hear from the organization so that I can actually go to them and say, listen, man, this is what the fans are saying. This is what the fans want to know. This is what the people want to know, the people who are paying, the people who I know are locked in. Because if you're watching this pod, I know that you guys are Pistons freaks, bro. I already know that, man. I already know that. If you're watching any of these pods, man, shout out to all of them from Half Court, Locked On Pistons. And there are many, many, many more, man. Shout out Woodward Pistons, man. Definitely, man. If you guys have watched this far, hit that like button, subscribe, share the stream, share the pod, and all of that. But I wanted to be real, man. I want you guys to be able to go and find that article on woodwardsports.com because I put in there, man, all the emotions and all the feelings. I did. And I want this team to get back to winning. I know that in this reporter role, we're supposed to be less fans as it relates to how our work is done, but we're still fans at heart as it relates to what we're seeing, man. And this is depressing. It's disappointing. I told you guys I'm gonna stop just short of disgusting. We got to see what happens from here. And it hurts, dog. It hurts, man. I cried when they won in 2004, bro. I cried when they lost in 2005. This hurts. I'm not gonna shy away from that feeling, man. But this trade, I actually kind of want to see what Danilo and Mike Muscala can bring to the table, because I would assume heading into next season, the Pistons are going to need some low cost options as well, and they're going to need players on the roster that they can go over the cap to sign, just depending on what they plan on doing going in the next season. If they bring in some big contracts, like if they go out and they bring in 2 big contracts, they're going to need some kind of low cost players that are already on the roster who you can go over the cap to resign your own players. So I'm hoping, that one of these guys at this point in time, fit be darned, Levine, Grant, Tobias, Miles Bridges, and you guys tell me if there's anybody else that you're looking at that you're hoping the Pistons can bring in, because ultimately this is where the conundrum lies. Either Cade, Duren, and Ivy are stars, or they're going to become stars, or they're not. Do the Pistons need to sign a star, or can Cade, Ivy, and Duren actually be those stars? That's what this thing is ultimately going to boil down to. That's where it gets disheartening, where Monty Williams just wasn't really playing, Jaden Ivey the way he should have. Let that man cook, please. Let that man cook. When Cade Cunningham gets back, let them cook together. I believe that backcourt can work. I believe that they can actually fit. As it relates to the game coming up, man, obviously it's it's going to be a tough task to cover Anthony Edwards. But honestly, man, I believe that the Pistons have this kind of weird recipe going on right now, where they're just, if you could play through, and this is kind of what I want to see out of Cade Cunningham. When you look at what Alec Burks is doing and just going ham, it's just like, you know what? Let's see more of it. Let's see more of it. Let's see more of it, man. She's looking through these game notes right now for the Minnesota Timberwolves Pistons game tonight, just making sure there ain't anything that I'm missing as it relates to the game. But I will be down there, trying to get down there earlier to be able to get you guys some more content. And like I told you, as we bring this to a close, I am going to be doing more content soon, a lot more content. I just needed things to be able to settle. Lions season has been crazy good. Got added to Lions coverage. Been down at the official, Lions VIP tailgate at Eastern Market Shed 5. Going to be up there again. Been interviewing fans. Been giving my analysis of the games. Been, doing a lot, bro. And it's been an awesome experience, an awesome time. And shout out to all you guys that really, really, really support me. I've been on soundboards for a lot of the shows at Woodward now. Morning Woodward Show, Armani and Edwards with Mass. Been doing sounds for Woodward and Main Street all season. That's the Lions Insider Show. That includes Gabby. Shout out to Gabby L.D. Phillips, the legend Terry Foster, and Matthew Broder, who is Woodward Sports' Lions beat writer and reporter. He's been doing a fabulous, fantastic job with his first year on the beat. Excellent job. He's contributed a lot to our network. He's helped us grow a lot. And he just kind of does whatever is asked, man, whatever is needed. And he's just a good person, too. So shout out to Matt. Love that dude for real. And I've also been doing sounds for the post-game show featuring Stick, Anson, Maz, Spinny, Easy, and shout out to Kenny and shout out to Pete as well. They usually are the TDs that I work with on Woodward Main Street and JB and the post-game sound. So it's been a lot going on, but there's a lot that's about to start hitting the channel again. And I'm going to be doing a little bit more sports as well. So soon the channel will be kind of everything Detroit sports. And Woodward Pistons will still be going on, but it's just going to be surrounded by a little bit more. So I appreciate you guys for being here. Blessings to all of you guys. Definitely, man, keep us in prayer and your well wishes. And I'm going to do the same for you guys. I'm going to check out, man. It's your boy Brandon Dent, a.k.a. Detroit Kool-Aid. And you're rocking out with the Woodward Pistons podcast on the Woodward Sports Network, man. Tap in next week. It should be a full show. And I'm hoping to have Table Talk this Thursday between 7 and 8. Thank you guys and blessings, man. Till next time, you all.